Hello everyone.
Bonjour à tous.
Ciao a tutti.
Hallo zusammen.
The House of Councillors election is scheduled for July 2025. And the world is going crazy. For example, it's Renho, of all people. She herself is said to be fully prepared to run in the House of Councillors election. This woman has an impressive track record. Renho is a Taiwanese girl, of mixed race, who began her career in 1985 in a commercial for the major company NTT, in the gravure entertainment world, where it is rumored that prostitution, settlement of business deals with sexual intercourse, has become the norm, and has steadily gained fame through her appearances in commercials ever since. However, mysteriously, in 1995 she suddenly suspended her entertainment activities and studied at Peking University in China for around a year. There is a political rumor even today among sources around the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that Renho received spy training in China during this time. In other words, the small country of Taiwan, officially not a country that is China, was a Japanese colony from 1895 until Japan's defeat in 1945, and as such is mistaken among many Japanese people as a country in which there are pro-Japanese people. However, in reality it is a Chinese-speaking country, and it is important to understand that its characteristics and tastes are very different from those of the Japanese. Especially at present, most Taiwanese are pro-China, and unless the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the police and public security authorities are fully aware that they desire unification with the People's Republic of China for business reasons, they will remain unaware of the true nature of Taiwanese society and its dark side. In the end, it can be said that Taiwan has long existed as a tropical island where illegal entities gather, and that part of the dark side remains. I'm sure you all understand. Amidst all this, Renho entered Japanese politics, and in 2024 she resigned from her House of Councillors midterm to run in the Tokyo gubernatorial election to be held in July of the same year, but she was defeated by the flippant candidate Ishimaru Shinji, coming in third, and you would think that she would still be heartbroken about this, but she was unexpectedly enthusiastic, and in an explosion of enthusiasm she once again said that she wanted to run for the House of Councillors. This outrageous act was the height of folly, exposing the party's lack of talent and its prioritization of party interests. Which is why it appears that she has now been chosen as the Constitutional Democratic Party's official candidate with the aim of giving the LDP an advantage. The world is just too crazy. Also, when I recall that I was previously voluntarily forced to hand out pamphlets together with former Deputy Prime Minister Katsuya Okoda, 71, in front of a junior Yamanote line station, I had to stand for more than 2 hours and the organizers did not even provide me with drinking water. So I think it is fair to say that the way the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan uses its personnel is reminiscent of a black company. This is because standing work can cause the risk of varicose veins and back pain, and so in security work or on factory production lines, it is common sense in the field of industrial accidents that shifts and short breaks should be taken every hour, as this is recognized as efficient work and work processes. To ignore this is a clear indication of the Constitutional Democratic Party's indifference to worker health management. So when the Constitutional Democratic Party decided to officially endorse Renho at its standing executive meeting on June 24, it could be said that it was a choice made out of a sense of camaraderie, in a climate of such sloppy thinking. The world is just too crazy. By the way, on June 25, 2025, former prisoner Takafumi Hori made a positive statement about participating in management at the general shareholders meeting of Fuji Media Holdings, the parent company of Fuji Television. However, the company is reportedly being bought up by Nomura Aya, the eldest daughter of former Murakami Fund founder Yoshioki Murakami, and others, who are buying up more than 10% of the company's shares, and this shows the misery of the company being a victim of the stock market. This is because Nomura Aya, who is buying up more shares in the company, was not indicted on suspicion of market manipulation in 2018 after a forced investigation in 2015, and is still potentially a person of interest to the Financial Services Agency, who are suspected of violating the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act again by the Securities and Exchange Surveillance Commission. Television stations' broadcasting operations are licensed and approved by the state under the Broadcasting Act, so the state cannot allow companies to be run using fraudulent methods. Similarly, shareholders who become the owners of the company must follow the will of the state, as this is the provision for licensed business. To put it simply, if Komeito were the largest shareholder, the station would transform itself into one that was convenient for the party. It would program programs aimed at gaining supporters. This is equivalent to the largest shareholder needing to eliminate antisocial forces. In the first place, if the largest shareholder is a member of an antisocial force, the Japanese government should use its police powers to bankrupt the public company, which is a basic stance in a country governed by law. This world is just too crazy. Well, I have one story to tell you today. Story 1. Order to achieve 5% of NATO's GDP ratio. On June 25, 2025, the summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, held in The Hague, Netherlands, ended with the United States requesting each member state to step down as its bodyguard, as soon as it gave up its aristocratic Tea Party atmosphere and began serious discussions. As expected, US President Trump ordered each member state to follow some tough conditions, but in reality, it is questionable how each member state will find a way to raise the funds. The requested amount is an excessive amount, requiring each country to spend a uniform 5% of its gross domestic product, GDP, as defense, military, expenses, but the attendees showed a lack of awareness and irresponsibility, and the leaders of the NATO member states who readily adopted the proposal were, after all, aristocratic fools. So, will the leaders of each country who attended NATO go back to their own countries and prepare to cut medical welfare, as instructed by the United States? Or will they take advantage of the international standard that has abolished the gold standard and deal with the increase in defense spending by issuing more and more national bonds and increasing the circulation of their own currency under a military standard system? If that happens, leaving it unused would be a waste of treasure, so war will become necessary, just like holding a soccer World Cup, and NATO and the United States will continue to support the continuation of the war, taking advantage of the Ukrainian war. There are arms dealers, such as Israeli weapons manufacturers, who think that war is a business, all over the world, and money is needed to maintain peace. Also, the US dollar is said to account for more than 40% of world currency transactions, and the currency with the largest volume of transactions in the world is the US dollar. So instead of tightening its monetary policy every time, the United States, which owns the key currency, may start a war against Iran in the Middle East or a war against Ukraine. It's the war business that has continued since President Reagan, President Bush Herbert, President Clinton, and President Bush Walker. They might even launch an option to start a war with Taiwan. The US will be adjusting the inflationary trend in international finance due to the war boom, so they will do it for the money. You all understand that, right? In any case, it would be wise for Japan to fully understand the US's mission to supervise and regulate international financial businesses, etc., with the Federal Reserve System, and considering the weakening of the Japanese yen since 2000, it would be wise to decide on domestic monetary policy in Japan based on the US dollar as the base currency. The Federal Reserve Board's principle of action has been to implement national fiscal spending based on the principle that, if someone is bleeding, it is best to give them a blood transfusion, not to stop the bleeding. This has led to the current situation, so it can be said that the expansion of the US dollar's currency supply is the cause of all of these bloated global financial crises. The more US paper money and US government bonds are printed, the more profitable the US is, but the scarcity value decreases as more is printed, so the financial capital system that has continued from the 18th century to the present day has transformed the world economy into a military-based one, backed by military force. Furthermore, the fact that the average annual income of the US, which no longer has any industrial factories, is in the 13 million yen range, more than twice that of Japan, can be said to be an unreasonable phenomenon of capitalist economy. In addition, because the yen is weak, most people visiting Japan from the US and other countries feel wealthy and like kings, so they will enter Japan without hesitation even if they are not familiar with Japanese. To summarize, if the LDP politics were still functioning properly, they would have prevented the yen from being weakened. The Japanese yen weakened after 1993, when Morihiro Hosokawa, the leader of the Japan New Party, became the 79th Prime Minister. The current major weakening of the yen was probably caused by the gradual weakening of the Japanese yen, and the strengthening of the Chinese yuan through trade promotion between Japan and China. The adoption of NATO this time is not an effort to optimize international trade and currency supply, but rather a trump card played by US President Trump, the FUMI dissolution of the EU European Union. In other words, the true intention of US President Trump is, don't go to war if you don't have money. In short, the European Union is using the fighting with Russia as a sense of crisis both at home and abroad to cover up, conceal, its own domestic failures. These are European countries where there are more holes than just cracks in their tax systems and elections, with immigration expansion policies causing a deterioration in public safety and employment, national budgets that do not maintain fiscal discipline, and systems that entrench the super-rich. US President Trump, who is disgusted and disappointed with such a Europe, NATO, is calling for major reforms in the international community. Now, everyone, isn't the income gap in Japanese society similar to that of Europe and the United States? Why is this? How is this possible? In urban areas across the country, there are many condominiums worth over 100 million yen, but are the condominium owners listed in the registry extracts good people? What would you think, Japanese people, if some of them were former prisoners, members of organized crime, or foreign residents in Japan? Wouldn't you feel angry or uncomfortable? Even if we work hard, we can't see our future. Looking at today's elderly people makes me anxious about the future. There are so many foreigners, I'm worried about our children's generation, and other comments like these make us think about the corruption of Japan's crisis management and politics. What is the government doing building apartments that cost over 100 million yen, which ordinary Japanese people, with an average annual income of less than 6 million yen, cannot afford? Are they stupid, or are they a corrupt magistrate who is taking bribes? It's a situation where a revolution would not be surprising. This is the second real estate bubble. What do the owners of real estate worth over 100 million yen do for a living? It can be said that if the National Tax Agency were to obtain the house numbers of the exclusive areas, inspect the extracts from the land registry, and conduct thorough tax investigations, tax revenues and other sources of funds would increase. Our country, Japan, does not follow the European aristocracy that stabilizes wealth through private property, and since Japan is the safest country in the world, it will be necessary to collect heavy taxes from foreigners to support life within Japan. The basis of taxation is, take from where there is, and from those who have the most. This is the basis of national taxation, so it is okay to be different in this respect from other countries. After all, unlike other countries, Japan has good public safety and crime is not that bad. Foreign countries can be said to be inferior countries where irrational values lie, and are extremely dangerous. Everyone, let's keep Japan safe and secure while defending it from other countries.